Good afternoon. Brian, are you guys ready? All right, good afternoon. My name is Chris Kavanaugh, and I'm the United States Attorney for the Western District of Virginia. I am here today with Commonwealth Attorney Bethany Harrison, the Special Agent in charge of the ATF here in Virginia, Charlie Patterson, Chief Ryan Zudema, and Sam DeNardis of the DEA as Group Supervisor. Today is a very important day here at the federal courthouse in Lynchburg. For the last 3 years, my office, the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of Virginia, has been dedicated to dismantling the organization that is primarily responsible and is the largest supplier of narcotics here to the Central Virginia area, including the city of Lynchburg. Today, this operation has been called Operation Storytime, and it starts and it ends with Jermel's story. Jermel's story, originally from New York, but then moved here to Lynchburg, where he was active in the drug trade from 2000 to 2013. In 2013, he moved south to Charlotte, North Carolina, where he led an organization that was primarily responsible for the presence of narcotics here in Central Virginia. This organization had over 25 people that were in it, and they pumped hundreds of kilograms of narcotics into our communities here in Virginia. Today, and with today's verdict by this federal jury here in the federal courthouse, marks the 24th and 25th convictions of individuals that were members of this organization, including Jermel Story's number 2, Ricky Abner, also living in Charlotte, North Carolina, who had a stash house that supplied this organization. In addition to Mr. Abner, Mr. Story was convicted and is facing between 25 and 30 years in prison as well, after a guilty plea, as well as his supplier that came from Texas as well. This is how it happens. It's the United States Attorney's Office and Department of Justice partnering with our federal agencies and local law enforcement, like the Lynchburg Police Department and the Lynchburg Commonwealth Attorney's Office. When we work together and put together a indictment of this magnitude with 25 individuals, the Lynchburg community can be made safer and has been made safer by these convictions that have occurred in this case here today. Hundreds of kilograms were seized in this operation and are not on our streets here in Central Virginia. Firearms have been seized and are not on our streets here in Central Virginia, and hundreds of thousands of dollars of proceeds by the individuals that were preying on our communities has been seized as well. This is the effort, and I'd like to thank all of our partners with the DEA, the ATF, the Lynchburg Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and the Lynchburg Police Department, because without all of these people working together, we couldn't have this impact on a community like this. So thank you, and I'd like to hand it over to Bethany Harrison for some comments.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. My name is Bethany Harrison. I'm the Commonwealth's Attorney for the City of Lynchburg, and I want to express my deepest thanks to our U.S. Attorney for the Western District, Chris Kavanaugh, and his prosecutors, to the federal agencies, and to our local law enforcement, who have all worked together to come out with this great outcome of putting away this criminal enterprise of people who are dealing drugs from state to state and within our community. The ripple effects of their criminal activity are felt by the many members of our community who suffer from addiction, to the poison that they spread throughout our community, from their loved ones who have to watch their family members overdose, die, or suffer from these ill effects. Also, with drug distribution comes violent crime. And by rounding up this number of co-conspirators, this number of people who are dealing in this very serious crime, this represents safety for our community, that we can partner together to have these great outcomes and take these offenders off the street for years, even decades. So thank you very much to those men and women who you may not see here today. We are the agency heads, but those who are working behind the scenes, those who are putting their lives on the line to make sure that you and I are safe. So now I want to introduce our Chief of the Lynchburg Police Department, Ryan Zudema.
Thank you, Bethany. I'm Ryan Zudema, the Chief of Police here in Lynchburg, and I'm very honored to be here today for this announcement. This is something that we've worked on. Some of the individuals that were a part of this conspiracy we've been dealing with for over 20 years here in Lynchburg. These are career criminals. These are folks that have put the safety of our citizens and our residents here in jeopardy for far too long. So I am grateful to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, ATF, DEA for the partnerships that we have, and it's those partnerships that yield results like you see here today. The men and women that are out on the street, as Commonwealth Attorney Harrison mentioned, are really the heroes of this. Those are the folks that have put in not days, not weeks, not months, but literally years into this investigation to make sure that it came to the point that it came to today. And to have 25 co-conspirators is pretty monumental for the city of Lynchburg. So we are grateful again for the men and women of the various law enforcement agencies and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office that have been involved in bringing this case to fruition. We're also grateful that, as Bethany said, we are a safer community today with all these people put away behind bars. With drug crime, obviously, comes violent crime, comes firearms-related offenses, and those are the types of offenses that truly impact the quality of life here in our city. So I am so grateful that we're able to partner with these organizations. These are long-standing partnerships we've had for many, many years and will continue to have for many years going forward. And I hope this sends a very clear message to those folks in our community that think that they're going to participate in violent crime or drug crime, that we will find you, we will track you down, we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. So I thank you for your time, and at this time I turn it over to SAC Patterson.
Thanks, Chief. My name is Charlie Patterson. I'm the Special Agent in charge of the ATF Washington Field Division. My area of responsibility includes the ATF field offices located in the Commonwealth of Virginia and the District of Columbia. Today I'm here to thank the men and women in law enforcement who continue to ensure our neighbors are safe by keeping violent criminals off our streets. The announcement made this afternoon sends a message that the investigation of firearm-related criminal activity remains a key focus for ATF and our law enforcement partners. Firearms are often utilized by drug trafficking organizations to protect their narcotics trade, which endangers public safety and our communities. Keeping the members of our community safe is the top priority of the men and women of ATF. We carry out this responsibility by disrupting and dismantling organized gangs and armed drug trafficking organizations, which oftentimes are responsible for supplying violent offenders with crime guns. This criminal activity is unacceptable and will continue to be addressed accordingly. To that end, I pledge the full support of ATF as we continue to implement an intelligence-driven approach to reducing violent crime in our communities. We will continue to stand with our local, state, and federal enforcement partners and collaborate with the United States Attorney's Office as we pursue justice together. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for coming out. I'm happy to take a few questions on behalf of the group if you have any questions.
You've mentioned about sentencing for Abner, but for Trent, can you explain to us there as well about that, the number of years and some of that information as well?
So Mr. Trent was convicted of possessing a firearm during a drug trafficking offense, which comes with it a 5-year mandatory consecutive term to any sentence that he receives on his drug offenses as well. So he's looking at least a mandatory 5 years, which is appropriate because even though that he is the 24th or 25th person to be convicted, he was not the highest level person. Much like any business or any organization, you have levels, with Story and Abner being at the top, and Mr. Trent being somewhere towards the middle or the bottom. So the United States Attorney's Office, the Department of Justice, and ultimately this court will fashion a sentence that is appropriate for individuals' involvement in the conspiracy.
Just one more, do we know when, is there a date for these sentencings yet, or is that kind of?
As you can imagine, there's 25 dates, but do we know the date for Mr. Story sentencing? December is when Mr. Story will be sentenced as well. So, and he's looking at between 25 and 30 years. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
I just wanted to confirm, for today's verdict, it was Trent and Abner that were convicted this week specifically.
That's exactly right. Of the 25 people who have been indicted in this case, 22 of them pled guilty and accepted responsibility and are facing lengthy sentences. 3 went to trial. Mr. Horsley, Vincent Horsley? Quentin Horsley went to trial a few weeks ago here in Lynchburg, and then today with Mr. Abner and Mr. Trent. Those are number 24s and 24 and 25. So 22 people pled guilty. Thank you all very much for your time today. We really appreciate you coming out.